to like do something weird with the YouTube live scheduling, but I don't know.
I
We're
don't
live
know.
now, so we'll see what happens.
We're live now. All right. Welcome to the Shut Up and Ride podcast, where we interview, yes, we, all of you out there, interview mostly mountain bikers, free riders, and generally cool people. Joseph from Trail Features fits all those three very nicely. If you want to ask my guest a question, what I've figured out is save it until about the third part. We'll certainly ask him anything that you want to ask him. And because I don't really see him when we start. So I'm not a big fan of watching a lot of interviews. You're a little blurry there, Joseph.
Yeah, let me fix that. My camera decided it didn't like me all of a sudden.
I thought
Hang
it
on.
was me.
No, you're fine. I'm just going to reboot my system real quick. And that's weird. That is so weird. I've never had that happen before. I guess it's just going to be like Casey Neistat artisanal.
Huh.
That's what happens when you have a super fancy live streaming setup.
Yeah,
You're always so proud about, but you go to touch something and suddenly it just doesn't like you.
I'm seeing if I can change this. No?
No, it's all on my end.
Why don't you reboot? We'll start like in 5 minutes. 5-10 minutes. You good with that?
Nope, we're good.
Oh, there you are.
Yep, it just takes a second for me to get it. It does that every now and then. All right, I think we're good now.
Joseph, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit?
Hey there. My name is Joseph from Trail Features. I obviously love to overcomplicate things with fancy camera gear, but I also like bikes, which you can see right over there. There's a big pile of bikes that I'm working on. And I've just been doing YouTube as a fun kind of hobby to combine my love of camera gear and bikes into one.
All right, I'm going to ask you a series of questions.
All right.
I'm going to start out with what kind of bikes do you have?
That's a very fluid answer because I have the Schwinn that they sent to me for testing. Hopefully going to have that video up in the next couple weeks. Then I have the GT Avalanche, which is also an ongoing project. But then I have my personal bikes, which is a GT sensor that I bought. I'm not sponsored by GT, despite what a lot of people think. And then I also have a Salsa Via gravel bike.
Really? So many of these questions, when I came up with them, I thought of you. And so I can't wait to get to some of these.
Have you ever...
Well, let me tell a lot of people out there, just before we start, if you want to get to a really quality mountain bike channel, Trail Features is what I steal from a lot, what a lot of YouTubers do. We go there and I look at his stuff, like his last video that he did, and my question's always like, this is amazing. And then I watch it a couple of more times, like, how did he do that? Like, if you watch the GT one, the opening alone would take me 4 months to do, and I don't even think I have the software to do that. And then I'm realizing that his camera's on a slider, and it's just delicious to watch. And so of all the YouTubers that we know, Joseph, he's the one to watch. And I'll also tell you this. We're in this little group together, and Joseph has always been incredibly generous with his time and any kind of advice, like this microphone that he hooked me up with was awesome. So keep in mind, all of his, to subscribe, if you're not already subscribed to Joseph, it's all in the description. His Instagram is there, his Facebook is there, his website is in there. I don't think Joseph is a Patreon guy, but if he was, yeah, I haven't walked that plank either. Let me ask you this. What was your first mountain bike? Like, how long you been in it?
So my first mountain bike was a 97, 98 GT Ricochet, or was it 98, 90? It was a late 90s GT Ricochet, hence my affection for GT. That was a bike that my parents bought me with money they didn't have. The short reason was my dad got into a really bad car accident when I was very young and was in a coma for quite a few months. And after a while, he
Holy
was able
smokes.
to, yeah, he was able to build up enough of balance again, to be able to walk. But it was interesting. He used to be an avid biker back in the day, and once you get someone moving with momentum on a bike, it self balances. So dad didn't have very fine motor control, but he had good gross motor control. That's the difference between doing this and doing this. So once he got on a bike, it was like he could only walk at a shuffle, but on a bike, he could move at a pretty good rate. So that was a big help for him.
How
Well, my
old were you?
parents, oh man, I was like 8, 9 when it happened. I was probably like closer to 11 or 12 when I got the GT. And so my mom wanted someone to go keep up with dad to make sure that he was being okay out on the trails because he wanted to get back into mountain biking. And so I was trying to keep up with him on my Walmart bike, but dad had this pretty nice bike at the time. And so all of us younger kids got some mountain bikes to go and ride with dad. So that way we could all haul him out of the bushes when he would topple over, which he did quite a bit. He would lose his balance and fall over. But it was his freedom. He could get out there on the trails and ride. So that was my
That's
first
awesome.
mountain bike.
Um, and that was Colorado,
New Hampshire, actually.
New Hampshire.
Yeah.
What brought you to Colorado? I know you're in
Family.
Texas for a while.
Yeah. Grew up in New Hampshire. We came out for a family reunion here in Colorado. We all fell in love with it, as everyone does when they come out to Colorado. Uh, Moved when I was 16. I lived here for 12 years. And then you want to hear the tragedy? When I moved to Colorado, I discovered video games and just completely forgot about mountain biking in Colorado. So for like
Wow.
12 years, just didn't touch a bike. Moved down to Austin, hurt my back, did a year of PT, rediscovered my love of mountain biking. That was where I got into mountain biking, and that was actually where I started my YouTube channel. And then we moved back about a year ago to Colorado.
How old is your channel?
That's a good question. Based off of like
Well,
my
it's
first
a
video,
weird
probably
question.
3 years.
Yeah, it's a weird question because a lot of people have old signed up in 2007, but didn't do anything with them for quite a while. Have you
Yeah.
ever have you ever regretted selling a mountain bike?
Selling, no, but I regret getting rid of that GT Ricochet frame because I stripped it for parts to build up my dad's bike. Because after a while, it just got to the point where he unfortunately couldn't ride anymore. Like his balance just started getting too bad, and mom started getting worried about him riding on his own. So I took his bike and rebuilt it with my GT, and it stayed in the garage for a while. When I moved out to Austin, my parents gave it to me like, "Here, we don't know what to do with it." And I didn't know what to do with it myself because it was way too small. I wish I had just mounted it on the wall, but instead, I just got rid of it. Just
Hmm.
placed it by the recycling bin.
Wow.
It's a tragic end to an amazing story of a bike.
Well, there's a couple of questions that I have that hopefully get you in trouble. Um, I don't know if this will get you in trouble with Jordan Boostmaster. Are 26-inch wheels dead?
For trail riding, yeah. But like many people have said, they found new life in dirt jumpers, kid bikes. You know, wheel sets are all about application. Plus size tires have different applications. I wouldn't use it on a downhill bike or a cross country bike, but they're awesome for hardtails that you just want to have fun on.
And while I'm
Plus size
thinking about
tires,
it,
that is.
tell me about your experience recently in Sedona.
Sedona is amazing. I recommend everyone go out there. The Sedona Mountain Bike Festival is hugely fun. And Hangover Trail is a jerk. It lives up to the name.
It looks scary AF. For a guy that lives 75 miles from there, I haven't been there in 20 years. And
It's a gorgeous view.
yeah, I've been in Sedona. When I started riding a long time ago, it just wasn't a place. And they kind of looked at you like, what are you doing here? So,
Yeah.
all right, here's a question. Are you a gearhead? That's not an answer. That doesn't count.
Yes, in every use of the term. Yeah. Computers, bikes, cameras, anything
Let,
that's technical with metrics.
let me define this a little bit better. Like I was thinking about this today. One of my subscribers was going, you know what? I don't want to see you change your bike. Don't put a new hub in it. Don't put an oval ring in it. Don't do this. And I sort of understood where he was coming from. And I've kind of always had this concept that you can upgrade your bike, but it probably isn't going to be as upgraded as you think. And the money that you're going to spend, yeah, it might leave you dry. If you're spending money on a really cool pink hub and you think it's cool, then go for it.
Yeah, you
What
know
what
what?
what are your thoughts on that?
No, that's actually a very good point. The problem nowadays is I think that we've gotten to the point where bikes are so good, people upgrade for the sake of upgrading. And with my channel recently, I've really focused on more budget-friendly options. Budget is a tricky term because, $1,800 full suspension bike may seem budget to some people. For other, that's a Cadillac. It's very relative to your
Sure.
current scenario. But I completely agree that there are things you can spend money on that have little to no impact on your actual riding or enjoyment. New tires. If you get a stock bike that's like $400, putting like $80 worth of good tires on it can make a massive difference over, putting a carbon handlebar on your bike.
So true. Let me ask you this. So you have a mountain bike. Let's say you have a mountain bike company. You make mountain bikes. What's the name of the company, first of all?
Because bikes.
BECAUSE,
Yep, just because, and then bikes.
not BECUZ.
Yeah, no, no, just because.
What kind of bikes do you make?
Probably, Salsa has actually been a really fun brand to follow because those guys literally just sit around a pub and like doodle out something on a napkin. Wouldn't it be fun if we had a full suspension plus size mountain bike or a full suspension fat bike? No realistic application, just because I think that would be kind of what I model my company of, like, not going to sell a lot of it, but the people that buy it are going to love it. So
No, I agree with that. And I wonder about the salsas. I wonder about the reebs. And I wonder about the sustainability of doing that. Um, and I worry for bikes like that. And I've often thought that the reason people make such expensive mountain bikes is it's a lot cheaper to make one. It's a lot cheaper to ship one. So if you have a $10,000 bike, how about selling that? You get your profit margin as opposed to selling four bikes at 2,500 bucks a piece, which is four times the mail, four times the manufacturing, four times the tariff, and so it is a rock and a hard place. And I'm glad places like Salsa still hang tough and still have an audience. Um, what do you think needs to change in the mountain bike industry, if anything?
you know what? This is the one question that I struggle with because I actually have I've been able to build up contacts in the mountain bike industry, and so I've gotten to peek behind the curtain on, like, how things are made, why decisions are made the way they are. And I would like to have more companies focus on making budget entry level bikes that actually
All right,
are
you
a
got to
little bit
define
cheaper.
that now. Tell me what that is, and
Okay.
I'll help you. I'll help you out.
Okay. What I would like to see
It's
is a
below
company.
$2,000.
Yeah, like a hardtail that's under $1,000 that comes with boost spacing, front and rear, um, just a good solid frame. And it's okay if you skimp on the components a little bit. Just give someone like something that they can maintain and build with. I kind of worry about people having to buy disposable bikes under a certain price range. Like, you buy an entry level hardtail and you ride it for 1, maybe 2 years, and then you gotta get rid of it because suddenly you've outgrown it. It would be nice for a company to step up and really make something that can last a while. And it's a difficult question to answer because it's a game of margins under $1,000. I mean,
And
most of those
so,
bikes don't really make a lot of profit. They're hoping to get you in the brand, and then the higher end bikes that have a much bigger profit margin, the loss leaders, make up for that.
so who are the candidates to make that bike? Like Schwinn and um, some other monster-sized company like Walmart.
Potentially. I mean, it's not something that's going to happen from a startup, at least not in my limited understanding of business, which is very limited. I don't pretend to be a MBA major. Um, but I think that it would be kind of that company that decides to go to the components companies and convince them to make mass production parts. But it's such a complicated question to be answered.
Yeah, I don't worry about the expensive bikes if somebody wants to get there. And I've always had this thing like people pick the wrong bike a lot. Um, like especially in Arizona, there's some downhill here, but not really. And please don't get mad at me, people in Mount Lemon or at Somo. There's a lot of great riders down in South Mountain, but for the most part, it's trail riding. And you see people buying full squish 27 and a halves. But what I really worry about is not so much those guys. I worry about the entry that somebody is going to get a Schwinn or a Walmart bike and go, mountain biking sucks. You
Yeah.
know, I I would rather buy an Xbox
Yeah.
with my $1,000, or I don't know what an Xbox costs.
I think it's like $300. I don't know.
I don't
I
either.
don't pay a lot of games these days, unfortunately, even though I have a lot of game paraphernalia behind me. Yeah, I mean, it's both ends of the spectrum. One of the reasons why I started focusing on more budget centric bikes was because I had a subscriber come out to my one and only group ride. Um, just because I found out like group rides are a nightmare as far as legality of who's responsible if someone gets injured. Thankfully, no one did, but I digress. The point was is that this young subscriber who was like 14 was wanting to get into enduro racing, and they were checking out everyone's bikes after the group ride, and they were talking about what type of bike to get. And the kid looked at me and he goes, "Well, should I like finance a bike so that way I can get a good one?" And he's not
Oh,
talking about like a few $100s. He's talking about like $4,000 or $5,000. First off, he's going to outgrow it in like a year because at 14, you're getting ready
oh.
to shoot up. And secondly, you should never consider going into debt for a bike. I love bikes. They have massive potential for mental, physical, emotional health. Um, they're great. I love them. But at the end of the day, they are a luxury item. I know that's going to really sting for a lot of people for me to say. It's kind of like a first world thing to say, privileged thing to say, but it is. You don't need
But
a
it's the
mountain bike.
truth.
Yeah, you don't need a mountain bike to survive. If you need a bike to get to work or get to school, then yes, look for a very affordable commuter bike. But a mountain bike, is something that I really don't want to see someone ruin themselves financially to get into. So they look at it, in the extreme sense of I gotta get the best bike ever. But then, as you said, um, getting a really cheap Walmart bike, that's just as bad because they can get hurt. They
Yeah.
can really not enjoy it. You waste a lot of money. It's
I
tough.
I think it's weird because the other thing I think that maybe no one wants to face this, and maybe people don't agree, but I always say for every $1,000 you spend on a bike, you get $400 back when you sell it, and that's if you keep that bike in really good condition.
Mm-hmm.
I just sold a couple of bikes on Pink Bike, and talk about sting. Like when you sell something, you're like, oh shit. Let me look at what's out there like mine, and you're like, yep. If it's a $5,000 mountain bike, you're going to get about 1,700 back from it. And so imagine the kid that finances that is still paying for a $5,000 bike.
Oh, and the interest
And the
rates are insane.
$1,400 is not even going to cover the principal.
Yeah, and of course, at 14 legally, you can't finance a bike. But it's just that mindset of like, I
Yeah.
have to spend all this money getting a good bike. And used bikes certainly are an option if you're lucky enough to have someone to help you navigate the murky waters of the used
Yeah.
market.
And another thing people don't know about Joseph here is I know he's been a big proponent helping out Jeff Lenosky, who's going to be on the channel, I don't know, this week,
Oh, nice.
but helped out with Candide quite a lot, with a link in a lot of his videos. And so I think that's where it kind of starts, where you can get a kid a bike, or like Brian Kennedy gave away a couple of bikes to his local high school. And that there are ways to get kids into bikes that they need to have. What's your worst injury on a mountain bike?
I had to go back and think about this. I think the two biggest injuries that I've had, I got, one of those classic shinners where my flat pedal pins, was in a bad crash. It was a low speed crash. So like I put my foot down and just, right across the front of the shin and just put this really long gash in there. And the worst part was I was about to go on a trip to Punta Cana. I'm butchering that. But anyways, go to a resort and hang out in water of questionable quality. So I went to the
That's
doctor and like,
salty.
yeah, like I went to the doctor and like they gave me like the super antibiotic cream, and then I got these like big waterproof patches to put over my leg. That was just painful. But then the worst injury I think was last year, the year before. I'm trying to remember when I first moved back to Colorado. I was on my Yeti. There's actually a clip of it because I have the video on my YouTube channel explaining why I was kind of down and out. I clipped a tree, and a series of events led me to going OTB with the bike between my legs. So I just completely somersaulted, landed on my back in a pile of gravel, and kind of slid down the side of the trail. And that, like, extended my back and aggravated an old back injury. And like that basically ended the season for me, which it was close to
Oh,
fall anyways. But that led to me selling the Yeti and realizing that I should focus on budget bikes for a while. So I kind of turned a negative into a positive there.
that's nasty. All right, let's get you in real trouble here. Will you ever own a pedal assist mountain bike
Oh,
in
yeah.
your lifetime?
I was actually considering one. People who have been following me on Instagram know that I've been dealing with, some heart diagnostic things. And, for a while there weren't any answers to the question of why my heart was randomly stopping. It turned out to be sleep apnea, which was easily treatable. But, before I actually knew, I heavily considered, you know, starting to get my bikes ready to sell and buy an e-bike because that was probably going to be
Wow.
the only way I'd ride. Thankfully, I got the all clear from my doctor to start riding again recently. So, but do I have anything against e-bikes? No, I think it's amazing. I know many people that have benefited from it, and I kind of think there definitely needs to be some laws to help define everything. But no, I think e-bikes are awesome.
No, I do too. My older brother is a huge e-bike evangelist, and he built his own. However, his own bike will go 45 miles an hour.
Yeah,
And that's the guy that you don't want to see on the trail. Like, no, you're going to ruin it for everybody because your city legislator just thinks that's what it is.
Yep.
And so that is a problem. All right. In the middle of this, don't forget, in the description of this is Joseph's channel. Well worth the subscription. It's so funny I say that, because old people like me, when people say I have a YouTube channel and I say, would you subscribe? Well, how much is it? Because old people think of subscription as subscription to a magazine or whatever. But Joseph has a very, very good Instagram as well. And I always say the same thing every time. Worth it. Totally worth it. Not too much, not too little. All right. What are you not very good at?
Time management. I suck at
Really?
that. Yeah, I'm a chronic procrastinator, mainly because like I'll get fixated on something that I find more interesting. So I'll look down at the clock and be like, I got 15 minutes before I actually really need to get ready. And then 20 minutes after that, I'll be like, oops, all right, well, I'm going to be late again.
You showed up on time for this.
I
almost didn't.
You want to know what's funny? I kept telling myself to clean up my office so that way it would be ready and I could edit. I instead like took a bath and I watched some YouTube videos, and I was talking to MTB Savant about the Schwinn bike because we're comparing notes. And like I was swapping out wheels on the Schwinn like 10 minutes before I hopped on here. So like that's a perfect example of how I procrastinate. So then I just quickly shoved everything off to the side so that way people can't tell my office is chaos.
And no spoiler on the Schwinn. We got to wait.
Yeah, you know what? Quite honestly, I don't know how that video is going to end myself. I got a lot of questions to answer.
I don't even know how my videos are going to start half the time. All right, here's the big question. Tell me something that you think is true that almost nobody agrees with you on.
I think that a lot of people don't realize that YouTube is now mainstream media, because whenever YouTube comes out with like a new law that they have to follow, or some sort of thing where like they're demonetizing the stuff for the latest funk, will go around, we'll just say funk because if we say it out loud, they will immediately demonetize this video. But you know, the current health situation, they're demonetizing those videos because people are trying to sensationalize it and get a lot of ad revenue because everyone's in a big panic about it. So, you know, people like, YouTube is trying to censor us. Like, well, they are basically a cable company now, and they have to make sure that they are abiding by all the rules because the FTC is suddenly paying way more attention to YouTube. Like when they started bringing down all these laws to protect kids online, and there was like this big outcry of like, you're going to kill channels overnight. It's like, well, if you're taking advantage of kids, then yeah, sorry, you do need to have your butt taken to court and sued into oblivion because that's messed up. You know, stop pushing products onto kids that barely understand how credit cards work.
Yeah, I've got to totally agree with you on that. I mean, at my job, I'm constantly like, we need to get up and teach this stuff if we have anyone that can do it. I don't think you understand what this means. I mean, I think Eric, our friend Eric, told me that YouTube is now more traffic than Netflix, Hulu, and Facebook combined. And the only thing I would disagree with you on is I think it's bigger than a cable company. I think I don't think they know what they have at this point. It's just, you know, based on the stuff that you look at, whether it's the new studio or anything, it's like you guys are hardly keeping up. All right. If you're a superhero, what's your superhero name?
sketch master, I guess.
What's your power?
It'd be awesome to be able to pause time, because that's the one thing, because of the fact that I have poor time management, that I just wish I had more of. Like if I just could like pause time and get a few more hours in the day to work on something.
What are you curious about right now?
Oh, everything. Um, I'm always absorbing random information. It's like the one thing that I love. Like, money, things, all that stuff can like be taken away from you, but knowledge is the one thing you can always, take with you. So like I
Huh.
always love to know what's going on, how things work. I think right now, if I were to say a specific thing, the business side of the bike industry, like just understand why they make the decisions that they do.
Yeah, that would be. Who would know? I don't know who would know that. That would be interesting. Like I saw your interview with Aaron Curson, and that was fascinating.
I love
I, I
talking to
can't
that guy.
I can't believe a husband and wife decided, you know what we should do? If my wife said something like that to me, I'm like, what? We should drop everything and make handlebars and drop her posts? What's something you failed at?
A lot of things. Um, at one point I wanted to be a vet tech assistant, maybe a veterinarian, and I realized, as much as I love absorbing information, sometimes I suck at recalling it. Like trying to learn all the different bones in a cat versus a dog. I just realized, like, oh, I'm gonna kill someone's pet. I'm gonna be terrible at this job. But the thing is like I don't really call it failures. You just find things that you're not good at, and you take that knowledge with you and you apply it to the next thing. Having that awareness of what you don't know can be just as valuable as knowing the information, because when you know your knowledge ends on something, that's when you can rely on experts to fill in the blanks.
Very well said. What's the best piece of advice that you've received?
Don't stand around and wait for a decision to be made for you. Be proactive in it.
Very well done. I heard a similar piece of advice a long time ago. The world is run by those that show up.
Mm-hmm.
What's the worst piece of advice you've ever received?
It's not so much from one person, but I thought about this. I've always not really been keen on the attitude, if you're not first, you're last, get yours. Basically, the people that always try to climb the corporate ladder by stepping on everyone else, that can be applied to many aspects in life. Certainly, distance yourself from people that aren't willing to help themselves. But when you work with the smartest people in the room and are able to elevate yourself because of them, make sure that you're pulling them up with you.
What personal trait has gotten you into trouble? And oh, by the way, if you want to ask, I know we started early, and that's my fault, certainly not Joseph's. But if you have a question out there, certainly type it out, and I'll put it on the screen for Joseph. What personal trait has gotten you into the most trouble?
I'm a massive troll.
Really?
Funny enough, that's actually how Jeff Lenosky and I became kind of buddies. I would constantly troll him over Instagram. Like whenever he would post something, I would send back a snarky response. It turns out that he's also a bit of a troll. That's why we get along so well. But there have been times where I press people's buttons and didn't get the reaction that I was hoping for. Had to eat a little crow sometimes to patch over a relationship.
He's a funny guy. I'm finding that out. I'm dealing with him a little bit. I can't wait to interview him.
Oh yeah,
He's a very funny guy. Very good dude. All right.
indeed.
Let's get you out of here because I promised to keep you here. Hang on. Let's see what this says. I missed the first part of this. Are you in Austin?
No, I'm not in Austin anymore. I actually moved up back to Colorado about a year and a half ago. actually almost a year ago now that I stopped to think about it, because our lease is coming up in June.
Wow. Never biking again or never making a YouTube video? You need to follow Joseph on Instagram. You'd know that right away.
Um, you know what? My videos, I've stepped back from like trying to pump out content for the sake of content. I have a really good job. I really like my coworkers. I work in the tech field, so I'm able to get super analytical. I specialize in virtualization and automation, if you know what that means. So this is kind of like my creative zen. This is where I get to like let my mind just wander. So my videos just take time, and when I don't feel like making a video, I don't force it, because then I'm going to make something that I'm not really happy sharing.
Are you still riding that GT sensor?
Yes, and there will be a video coming out eventually, kind of showing the next phase of it. You probably will get a little bit of peaks here and there because other content creators were out with me in Sedona, and I've definitely swapped a few more parts out, but I'm still doing it with a budget conscious mindset. And I still have some more stuff to play around with.
Who the hell's this kid? Oh, it's this some kid. Should we answer
Yeah,
this kid's question?
I guess so.
I love this kid's channel.
Yeah.
And everyone out there, if you're not a subscriber of one MTB, this is awesome. He wants to know, is a DJI Osmo Pocket worth it? And Joseph's the guy to ask.
So here's something that I always try to reinforce with people. Cameras are just tools, and you need to find the right one for the right application. Is it worth it? It depends on if the video quality is exactly what you want and it replaces a larger camera. I know a lot of people that don't even use a larger DSLR or mirrorless camera. They just use the Osmo, because a lot of the times we forget that most people are watching our videos on these tiny little screens, probably while predisposed
I
in the
forget that all the
restroom.
time.
Yeah. And so it's more about the story. And the story is kind of an ambiguous answer. But I think it's worth it if it answers all the questions of, you look at it, you know exactly that's going to solve the problem you have currently. If you just are looking at getting it because it looks cool and it's neat, I've bought a lot of camera gear that I thought looked cool and neat and I never used, like a cable cam. I bought that and I've
That's
used
got
it
to be some
maybe
serious
once.
buyer's remorse.
Yeah, they're not cheap. So
Wow.
there you go.
All right. Slater Mountain Biking wants to know what editing software you use.
Yes. I actually used to work as an intern in a production house because once upon a time I wanted to become a full-time video editor. And so I have learned how to use most editing applications: Final Cut Pro, DaVinci Resolve, Adobe,
Oh,
some
Adobe is a big
proprietary
boy
stuff.
tool.
All of them have their pros and cons, and all of them basically have the same tool sets. It's just learning the keyboard shortcuts. And that's the biggest thing. Whenever you get into a good editing platform, to make the most of it, learn the keyboard shortcuts, because that's going to save you the most time.
Wow. All right, last question. Good Trails wants to know any lowdown on the Osmo Action 2 coming down the pipe, and if anyone would know this, Joseph certainly would.
I'm confident it's coming. I personally haven't seen any rumors. I'm sure that we'll probably see something maybe towards the end of this year. A lot of manufacturing has been disrupted in the bike industry and the electronic world, like Fuji. I use a XT3. This is what I'm live streaming on right now, and the new XT4 just got released. But because of the current world situation with health, a lot of manufacturers are stuck, and Fuji had to do a what's called a paper release where they announced it, but you can't buy it until maybe April at the soonest. But I'm not counting on that coming out until,
Hmm.
you know, September maybe is when I'm going to be able to pick one up.
Yes, we are in strange times indeed. All right, last three questions. What's your favorite word?
Word. Yeah, I use that a lot.
Okay.
I picked it up from friends. So like sometimes, someone will say something and be like, word.
It works in so many different ways, though.
Exactly. Word is word.
What's your favorite curse word?
Since I know young children are watching, my favorite is the F-bomb. Whenever you meet me in person, you're going to find out that I actually curse like a sailor. But in my videos, I try to keep it very family friendly.
I appreciate that. Bobo has the world record at demonetizing this podcast within 20 seconds.
But you want to know my favorite curse phrase?
Yes.
North end of a south-facing cow. I learned that one in Afghanistan when I was working overseas.
I got it. Last question. And once again, don't forget, well worth the subscription to Trail Features and the IG and the Facebook. And I even have his website on here as well. What profession other than your own would you wish to attempt?
Probably marketing. I really like, psychology, and I also like, being able to figure out how to like message things. So, I think it would be fun.
Good answer.
Mostly because, mechanical engineering, I would have to learn a lot of math, and that's very painful.
No, thank you. No, thank you. Well, Joseph, I personally thank you. Oh God, look who just came in the room.
Exactly.
Are you kidding me?
You got to close this up now before he says anything.
He's going to embarrass himself.
Gonna have to call his wife. Come get him.
I'll call his wife. Look, it's my son. Anyway, Joseph, thank you so much. Shane, you're coming up pretty soon. I really appreciate your time. I've been looking forward to this for quite a long time. So thank you so much. And thanks to everyone for showing up, and thanks for your questions.
Yeah, indeed. Thanks for having me on the show. And it was great to be